Great to have you with us this afternoon. Mark, I know you've written a lot about how Europe marginalised, even powerless in this latest escalation between Iran and Israel. Tell us a bit more about that.
Well, I think it's very obvious, especially after this weekend as well. The European leaders, I mean, British, French, Germans, they said, we're going to give diplomacy another try. And at the same time, the United States decided to launch their attack. So I think there's been very few points in modern history where Europe, and be it the European Union or European governments as such, have been more irrelevant than they are today. And this is mainly because they've been running after Trump. They've been challenging sometimes his rhetoric, but in practice, they've not stood up to him. They've not stood up to the choices the American administration has been making.
What role do you think then, having said that, that the EU, Europe should play?
Well, I think the EU has always been very vocal about international law, human rights. And I think they should finally, act upon it because we have seen massive violations by Israel of international law. That is not disputed. Also, international legal scholars are very clear about the attack Israel executed against Iran being illegal under international law. So if, as a European Union, you are serious about international law, then you should act upon it. And you should say, well, I mean, Israel has violated international law. We've seen that. We're going to act upon it. We're going to sanction Israel, or at least we're going to suspend our privileged partnership, the association agreement that links the EU to Israel. So there's a number of measures you could actually take to regain diplomatic relevance. But I'm seeing today that, unfortunately, the EU is not acting upon it.
To be fair, if diplomacy has failed, Israel may say, and they feel under threat by a neighbour with nuclear weapons, legally, what other routes do you think they could have taken?
Well, first of all, diplomacy hadn't failed when Israel attacked. Let's be very, very clear about this. There was talks scheduled for the Sunday after the attack. So making the claim that diplomacy had failed is just utterly false. The other claim about it was self-defense we had to is also utterly false, because there's no proof of any Iranian nuclear weapon, or even, as the International Atomic Energy Agency confirmed, of even a military program by Iran. So basically what the Israelis are saying makes no sense whatsoever in international law. So what other routes were there? Well, first of all, I think we've got a very great experience with the 2015 deal, a deal on the Iranian nuclear program, where the Iranians even accepted to limit their civilian nuclear program by saying, okay, in order to, build confidence, we will even limit that. And that was destroyed by President Trump, during his first mandate. So I think we need to, as Europe, we need to be able to also put the blame where it is. We're very clear and very, straightforward when Russia is to blame for violations of international law or international humanitarian law. Why are we unable to do that when the Israelis do it, or when the Americans do it? Because let's be very clear, the US attack on Iran of this weekend was also perfectly illegal.